What's up, coaches? This is Korey Harris, and I'm live with Coach Phil Beckner. Y'all know what it is. This is the Transition, a real resource for coaches. Coach Phil, thank you so much for your time. It's an honor.
Korey, thanks for having me, man. Like we talked about, really admire you and your approach. Not only who you are, but why you're doing this. And like I said, I've been asked to do a bunch of these lately, but you're the only one who sent out, personalized video, who has a little bit of a different mission and a different vision to do this. So I'm grateful for you having me.
Appreciate that, Coach. Appreciate that. So let's not waste anybody's time. Can we jump in to talk about like your origin? Like, why did you get into coaching? I know you probably hooped back in the day, but why go that route?
Yeah, good question to start with. I grew up played in high school, played in college, small college. We weren't very good. I always say the best college story I have, we went 2-27 my senior year. We didn't win a game second semester. And I can't remember who it was. I think it was Doc Rivers a long time ago. I heard him, at a coaching clinic, and he was like, man, you learn a lot as a coach when you lose, like when he started in Orlando. So obviously losing all those games as a player in college probably got me ready to be a coach. You knew what didn't work, but man, I just always had a passion for basketball. It was kind of always my escape growing up, and getting away from maybe some tough stuff went through in my childhood and whatnot, but love the game. And then the way to carry that out when you're not a good enough player, when you can't play professionally, is to coach and try to help other people become a pro, or other people fulfill their dreams.
For sure. Talk about your inspirations, right? Like players, they'll draw from another great player who maybe came before, and they try to model their game, their swagger, everything after that player. As a coach, who were some of your muses?
Yeah, there's one guy. He actually just texted me this morning. My mentor, my basketball mentor, but also a life mentor, Russ Pennell. He was an assistant at Arizona State. He was a hell of a workout guy. He actually ran FCA camp, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I went a couple of years when I was in high school, and back then college coaches could still run outside camps. But Korey, I tell Russ this all the time, like, I wanted to be him. You know what I mean? Like when we're at the park sometimes and we're emulating moves of players, like how he carried himself as a coach, how he commanded the gym, the way he taught skills. So I remember being a player wanting to play for him. Like I almost walked on at Arizona State just because he was a top assistant coach there, and wanted him to train me and be around him. So I wanted to be a guy like him. And then when I got out of college, I moved back to Arizona. He had quit coaching college for a while and ran a basketball academy. And I got to be his volunteer, his assistant, his intern, and got to learn from him for about 2 years. So he had a tremendous impact, not only on my life, but on my coaching career.
Wow, that's a cheat code right there. So literally you went from seeing him and watching him and emulating him to you got to be up close, personal, and really get the full effect. Talk about your time, obviously, as a college coach, right, at Weber State, Nebraska. You've had so many stops. I know you don't just go straight into coaching. You might have had to be a grad assistant, a director of ops, who knows? That's why we have you here, is to learn from you. But talk about how that perspective influences now your skill development, because I think it's very different being a coach within a staff than it is being a personal coach or just an individual player's personal trainer.
Yeah, Korey, that topic you just approached is what's so important nowadays, whether you are a coach at the collegiate level, high school level, or whether you're a trainer. And I think this is some of the stuff I'm starting to call the secret sauce. Not meaning I have all the answers, but like we all want to figure this out. Whether you're a trainer trying to build your own company, or maybe training NBA or high school kids, or whether you're a college coach or high school coach who now has to develop players better, there is a mix there. There's a secret sauce. There's a sweet spot we all need to find. And I was lucky enough to get into college basketball, which helped me so much now on the training and consulting and player development side. Because as you know, until you're a head coach and actually have to sub a guy in a game or call a timeout or draw up a play, like those are experiences you don't get anywhere. So I started at Weber State as the director of basketball operations. And I always tell my coaching story because it was a little bit unique. I coached 2 years of high school. So as a high school JV coach for 2 years, an assistant varsity coach. And then I would work for Russ Pennell at that basketball academy on weekends and in the off season. So I knew I wanted to get into the college level, and Randy Ray at Weber State had a director of basketball operations job. Unfortunately, what people don't realize back then, that job entailed everything because it was kind of low major, mid major basketball. So you're the ops guy, the video guy, the GA. I always remember my first 3 jobs were to show up, turn on the lights in the arena, roll the basketballs out, and fill up the water jugs. So we were all, because we didn't have managers running around, we didn't have GAs. Right. So when Coach Ray offered me that job, he goes, "Hey, we'll put your picture on the website. You could have the title. The only bad thing is we can't pay you. We have $0 for this position." So for 2 years, I worked for free at the college level. I would work all day at Weber State. And then at night, I'd go work the night shift at Costco. I did that for a few months. Then it was kicking my butt too much. So then I started refereeing men's league games at night and on the weekends. But what you learn is, and this is why I think this is such a good topic for coaches and trainers, when you put yourself out there, whether you're trying to grow a business, start a business in the training world, or you put yourself out there trying to get into college coaching, number one, you figure out how bad you want it. You really figure out, do I really want to do this? Is it really worth the sacrifices? And then the second thing you learn is what it takes to get it done. Like, you make so many mistakes, or like I even said, until you've called a timeout or subbed a guy in as a trainer, you don't know what these coaches are going through. And I'll wrap up your question with this, because we do a lot of this with like our clinics that I do in Phoenix, or our mentorship group. And Russ Pennell always told me this. He said, "Hey, if you want to be a police officer, where do you go? You go to the police academy. If you want to be a doctor, where do you go? You go to the medical school. If you want to be a teacher, where do you go? College of Education. If you want to be a coach, where do you go? There's nowhere to go. There's not some degree. If you want to be a coach, you got to start freaking coaching, whether that's 8th graders, high school kids, trained, like go to the park and work dudes out, because there's no school of coaching." And through, my basketball business, we try to do that now. We mentor some people, we do some clinics, we have some opportunities where people come out and intern, or, do some one-on-one experiences, but there's really no school of coaching. So that's the secret sauce, man. That question you have is phenomenal. That sweet spot we all have to have is really important.
No, that's beautiful. I think you touched on so many things, and there's no way I can unpack them all, but you talked a little bit about just like what it takes and the behind the scenes type access into the grind that had to come before you can have all the success that you have now. And I want to kind of segue that into, people see your clientele now. It's public knowledge. Like, you work with some of the best players in the game, and they say, "I want that. Like, I want to travel. I want to have these guys trusting me, or these women trusting me." But maybe they don't know how you develop the competency, right, to have these type of people trusting you. Can you talk a little bit about just the entry level, or the floor, like the requirements, right, the principles you have to have nailed down as a coach before you can even earn something like that?
Yeah, I think the number one principle, though, and it's not just for coaches to nail down something like that. Like, you narrowed that question into our profession, of coaching and training. But Korey, this applies to you as a human. It applies to me. It applies to a Damian Lillard or Mikal Bridges as a player. Success and jobs and opportunities have certain requirements. That's the number one principle. Like, there are requirements that you have to get done. They are not options. And that's true for any player. Everyone says they want to be an NBA All-Star. Everyone says they want to be a first-round pick or be first-team all-conference for their high school team. To be able to do that, there are absolutes and requirements, like you said, that are at the floor and at the surface for everybody. And I think we got to look ourselves in the mirror and figure out those first, as a person and as a human. Like, what is your commitment level? What is your punctuality like? What is your professionalism like? What is your discipline like? I had a phone call this morning with a young trainer who wants to work with me. And every time he submits his work, it is A+ work. The problem is I have to follow up with him about his work. And I mean, think about that. We got a guy like Damian Lillard, who's a top 75 player of all time, who's an NBA All-Star at this point in his career, and even the last 8 years of his career. Do you think we have to follow up about his workout times? Do you think we have to follow up? Hey, Dame, did you watch the film we sent?
Right.
The success has requirements, jobs have requirements, and that's the number one failure or number one gap that most people have to close to get to where they want to be.
Wow.
But to build forward with that, if you want to get specific into the basketball world, I think there's a few things all coaches and all trainers could do. Number one, they have to define reality of what this profession is and what it's going to take. I just met with a guy. He's been a trainer for 12 years. He has about 3 or 4 NBA clients.
Okay.
Like that just goes to show how hard it is to get NBA clients. And
Right.
defining reality also means like this job isn't always about NBA players. It isn't always about getting on a plane and flying to OKC to train Chet Holmgren, then getting on another plane and flying to Portland to train Dame, and then you're in Phoenix and 2 sons got like, that's not always reality. We could impact people's lives. We can impact people's careers at every level. So one, defining reality. And then the 2 skill sets I think you really got to have. And you use the word for the second one, but the first word is being highly organized.
Okay.
You have to have a plan, whether that's a business plan, a player development plan, a plan for yourself. You have to have a plan. And that's something we do at all of our clinics and in our mentorship stuff. It's got to be thought out. It's got to be written out. It's got to be detailed. You have to be able to share it. You have to be able to communicate it. But if you don't have a plan of how you're going to take this player from A to B and then B to C, because everyone always has a plan from like, hey, I'm going to take you from A to Z. Like, that stuff doesn't work.
Right.
A plan for yourself, a plan for your business, a plan for your team. And then the third thing, though, is what you said. You used the word competency. You got to be competent at this stuff. I just met with an NBA assistant the other day. He's phenomenal at scouting, phenomenal at schemes, phenomenal at team drills. He wants to get into player development more. So I said, hey, find your 4 absolutes. 4 absolutes that you could teach, 4 absolutes that you could drill, 4 absolutes that if you get a player, you could absolutely dominate. So I think those 3 things, just, defining reality, knowing what it really is and what it isn't, being able to communicate a plan with others and showing them where you're going to take them, how you're going to take them there, and when you're going to take them there. And then the third thing, which is the word you use, man, the competency of this stuff. Do you have enough knowledge or do you have enough skill in the area that you're trying to teach?
Amazing. Amazing answer. I was not expecting all that. You know what? I lied. I was, because I know who I'm interviewing, and that's why I tried to seek you out. So thank you for that breakdown. I was watching a recent interview. Damian Lillard was talking with, I think it was, the Pivot podcast, Andre Iguodala, Turner. They were breaking down just his origin story and his time at Weber State. And he was actually sharing interaction you and he had, and he was talking about how you were just not on the bandwagon when he first came to Weber State. Like, you were not sold on him yet. You thought he had so much to work on. Where does that mindset and that mentality come from, where some guys, don't get me wrong, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but they get starstruck, or they actually are like fans of the players that they're supposed to be serving, and they might fear being honest at times because maybe they fear the player not liking them, right? Where does your ability to detach and not be worried about that come from?
So I'm glad you elaborated on that question, because before you stopped, you were like, man, why were you challenging him? Or why weren't you on the bandwagon? And my answer, I swear on everything, was going to be fear. But like, I live in a different fear.
Okay.
I have a fear of not wanting to cheat a player, not wanting to see them, be mediocre, not wanting to see a player or a team reach their potential. And we've talked about this since Dame was in college, and we've all heard it. There's 2 pains in life: the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. And I think we all know the pain and regret kills us so much more. So if I work with a guy or I work with a team, you know, there's teams that bring me out now or corporations that bring me out. Like I live in fear of cheating them and of them not reaching their potential or of them not reaching their goal. And one thing I challenge all trainers and coaches with, everyone I work with, and I think this actually comes with a level of humility and a level of responsibility. When a player says, I want to work with you, or a player says, this is my goal, this is my dream, help me get there, he's actually saying, I trust you the most.
Wow.
The thing I believe in so much that I want to get done, I'm trusting you to get me there. And some people now think like, oh, well, I don't want to lose a job. I want to be around this high level guy. I want all the fun stuff that comes with it. Where instead, the people I work with in my team and the staff we have in Phoenix, we say we want, if someone gives us that opportunity, we want to approach it with humility and responsibility because they're trusting us with the most important dream or goal in their life. So going back to Dame, I saw a ton of potential in that kid. He had, you know, great size, great dimensions, some natural ability, and I didn't want to cheat him. And here's what I think really separates too, because I mean, you look back on it, that was dang near 10, 12, 13 years ago. And I think the same thing just happened with Anthony Simons. Our approach when we train these guys, we're not just setting out to be an NBA All-Star or to have the $100 million contract and the nice home and the nice cars. We're setting out to win. Like you think about it, the winners in life, the winners in basketball, great things always happen to them. If there's a way, win it being a husband, win in your marriage, you know, win it, we were trying to win a Big Sky championship. And with Dame, and because of that, he became an MVP. He became a first-round pick. You know, he became Rookie of the Year. Same thing with Anthony Simons. Like we were just 4 years ago or 5 years ago when he was a rookie, we're trying to turn him into a winner. And if you want to be able to turn someone into a winner, you can't be afraid to give them the truth. And what's so powerful about this, I think Rising Coaches just tweeted it. I forgot about it. I spoke at one of their clinics a few years ago, and Dame said, like, these players don't, this is Korey, this is such a phenomenal deal. And I learned I think I learned more from Dame than he learns from me now. Because I was emailing my stuff yesterday that he was saying at home, like, he said this though, players don't need you to participate with them. I mean, how many trainers, coaches need to look in the mirror because they're going to bars or clubs or they want to wear the same Nike stuff, the same Adidas. They don't need you to participate with them. They need you to take them from step A to step B or step C to D so they could accomplish what they want. So, and I've never been perfect at it. I'm still trying to grow as a coach and a leader. But man, I live in fear. And we call this, and this is the last thing I'll share on this. We want an appropriate fear. Okay. We don't fear competition. We don't fear we want an appropriate fear of, man, maybe what happens if we're not disciplined or if our commitment level is not high enough. An appropriate fear of when we face someone who maybe had better habits than us. And I think that fear could drive us the right direction to fuel players the right way.
Wow, powerful answer. And I do agree with you. There comes a point when, as you're working with these players, you start gleaning and learning from them, and it's so much more of a collaborative effort. You touched on this very quickly, but you did it very eloquently in your last answer. I wanted to ask you about those 4 disqualifiers. And so you were already talking about it a little bit with like professionalism and not participating, but young coaches, young trainers, we have pitfalls, and you call them disqualifiers that maybe diminish their opportunities to excel in this craft or to rise in coaching or to gain more opportunities and be taken serious. Can you break some of those down? You were already hitting on it, so I don't want to stop.
Korey, and I think these you know, disqualifiers apply to every level, to be honest. High school, college, NBA, they're the same things that will disqualify me. They will be the same things that disqualify you. Okay. And if you think about it, Essentially, we're all kind of waiting or working for that next opportunity. Not saying we're always just like trying to climb the ladder, but that opportunity again could be winning a championship, or a player calls you and wants to train with you, whatever it is. So we have 4 of them. I'll give you all 4.
Okay.
The first one is lack of professionalism. The second one is lack of availability. The third one is lack of teaching. And the fourth one is lack of purpose. So number one, and all the people I interview, I had a young guy reach out to me the other day from a Division I staff, and he and just talk about professionalism. And we all know the basic one is like, you better have your social media cleaned up. Like, okay, you could fool anybody by what you put on social media, or liking or disliking the wrong things. Like, so be it.
Right.
There's a young guy, he reached out, his staff, I think, just got fired at a Big Ten school. And he said, Phil, I'd love to come out, work for you for a few months. And I actually had a paid position open and a non-paid position open. And I was really, really interested in him. And I said, email me your stuff. And I said, here's a couple questions you need to fill out. Send me your resume, send me an intro. But he said, you will have it by tonight. I didn't get it by that night. That's a lack of professionalism. He's disqualified. He's not going to do what he says he's going to do. The big one's being on time, how professional, you are with your punctuality, how you dress, how you carry yourself in workouts. You know what I mean? Is it the backwards hat, the AirPods in? Like, man, if we're trusting someone with our dream, like, you better take your AirPods out and freaking be locked in on what I'm paying you to, to where I want to get. So one, lack of professionalism. 2, here's a big one, lack of availability. Like, are you available when that opportunity arises?
Yeah.
Will you show up and roll the balls out, make sure there's air in them, sweep the floor, fill up the water jug, and turn on the lights? Like, are you available to do that every day? One of our jobs I require guys to do in Phoenix, and now any interns who work for me could watch this. I've never given this secret away, but are you available every morning to vacuum the carpet under the chairs? Like, it takes 0 talent to vacuum carpet, but you know what it takes? It takes availability and commitment. Can you show up and be available at 7 a.m. before we start at 8? Because a player doesn't need to hear someone vacuuming while you're starting to shoot. Like, no, are you there, and can you do it every single day? Are you available to do little things like that? The third one I said is lack of teaching. And that's where I love your word. You use competency. I know Van Gundy always talks about that. Like, you got to be competent. If a player knows that you know your stuff, he's going to trust you way, way more. And that's where it doesn't matter age, race, height, any of that stuff. Like, if you're competent. But I do think this, in the world we have now, and the world we live in now, and the access we have to every drill on YouTube, everything on Instagram, you could steal any concept or drill, but can you teach it? Like, the best coaches are the best teachers. And we just hit that topic in our mentorship group. I brought Dean Lockwood in to speak to us, Michigan State assistant. He worked for Pat Summitt. He's coached 30 years men's and women's Division I basketball. Korey, he's like the best of the best teachers. Okay. Like, if you could teach people to do things, you will accelerate progress. If you could teach players to do things, you will accelerate their progress. So if you can't teach, you have a chance of getting disqualified. And then I should make this one the first one. Sometimes we do talk about this as the first disqualifier, but I think too many times people are, disqualified because of professionalism, but lack of purpose. If you don't have a mission or a why, or even, I say, here's what we challenge a lot of high-level leaders and execs I work with now. Like, everyone has passion and talents, but how about your burden? Like, what is that thing that burdens your soul? Or burdens your mind? Like, you want to wake up and make a difference in the world or in someone's life in a certain way. Ultimately, if you don't have a purpose, or like me, I got away from my purpose in college basketball, and it ate me alive. All I started caring about was winning and recruiting and the logo on the shirt and the next salary. And that's why I left. Like, I got away from my purpose. But so many young coaches and trainers, man, if you could find your purpose, or like I said, your mission, your why, your burden, like that's going to carry you through a lot of tough times. And it'll also keep you narrow during a lot of good times. So yeah, the 4 are really, really simple, but They're very hard to do and very hard to stay committed to, but lack of professionalism, lack of availability, lack of teaching, and then lack of purpose.
Man, the thing that I love about everything you're sharing the most is how it translates across all lines, all boundaries. This is life stuff. It's not just hoops. It's not just basketball or coaching. This is, regardless of your profession, something that's going to help you excel. What has your transition like, since you just talked about transitioning from coaching full-time, working on the college levels? What has that been like as you've now crossed into just full-time running a brand, running a business, being a skill development coach?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's been hard, it's been challenging, but it's also been very, very, very educational. Like the stuff you learn going along, just like a new profession, business strategies, how to make players better full time during the season. Like some of those things are best learned by experience. Unfortunately, we could read all the business books, we could hire mentors, leadership people, but you just got to experience things sometimes. Like hiring and firing people, man, that has made me a better person, coach, leader. Knowing how to price workouts out and what to say no to, what to say yes to. It's been a challenge. It's been a learning experience, but it's also been really, really, really fun. I wish I knew, which we all say this, just like in coaching. So this is Korey. This is actually year 5 of me doing this, which is crazy. And I started with 2 NBA players. That's it. And now, and I don't publicize every guy I work with. Like I couldn't tell you how many guys we have who want to train, whether it's NBA, overseas, college, high school. Like we're unbelievably blessed to get to train that many people. And here's my biggest takeaway from this transition. I'm a big Tony Robbins fan. I suggest everyone watch his stuff, or especially the show on Netflix. It gets a little deep sometimes, but the I am not your guru. But Tony Robbins has a great quote, and I share this with players all the time now. And Dame would probably like me a lot more if I would have known this back then, traded him, because it's made me a lot more patient with guys. But Tony Robbins says, as humans, we overestimate what we could do in 1 year, but we underestimate what we could do in 5 years. I'll say that again. Like we overestimate what we could do in a year, but we underestimate what we could do in 5 years. And if you would have told me I was doing all this stuff with all these people, with all these great opportunities, whether it's in the corporate world, college teams, professional speaking, professional training, if you would have said, Phil, you're going to be doing all this in 5 years, you're crazy. There's no way. But year 1, when I was only training kind of 2 NBA guys and maybe speaking at one clinic, I was like, how do I double this? How do I, I'm freaking out and overestimating what I think. And that's just, it's such a good framework for us to all think about as we build new things and as we go through transitions, because transitions are hard. Change is hard. And at the end of the day, if we could just remember, like, hey, we're probably overestimating our abilities now, and we might be underestimating our abilities for the later, it's just a good framework to work from.
I've never thought of that, not once. We overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, but we underestimate what we could accomplish in 5.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I'd love to see if you stay committed to this podcast, and like when you reached out, one, you already found a different way. And we always talk about be better, be different. I got to send you some gear after this. Don't let me forget. But we always talk about being better is an advantage. Like if you're just wake up and you're more talented and you're better than people, that's an advantage. If you're different, well, that's an advantage as well. Like I'm not better. I'm not as tall as LeBron or as talented as Giannis. So I got to be different in my thoughts, in my character, in my preparation. You were different in your approach to get me on this. You sent a personalized video, you followed up, we started on time, you said thank you, you said, like, your professionalism, your level of excellence is high level. So you're different with that approach, but you're also better with how you do this, how you go about it, being on time. And we always say, if you're better and you're different, then you have a chance to be elite. Then you have a chance to be, top 5%. So if you stuck with this for 5 years, you probably look back on year 1 and you're like, man, I had this guy, and this year. 5 years later, holy cow, look where I'm at, or look at the lives I've impacted, or look how this has grown and the effect it's had on my business and other people's business. And That's what a lot of people, lose, and they don't stick with that framework.
Wow. Yeah, I got to move on because if not, I'm gonna have you unpack that for the rest of the interview, and we'll never.
No,
never
no
talk.
worries. Want to stay on time here. I apologize.
No, it's literally me. I'm just like tripping off that right now. So for the skills coaches that are determined to transition from training into coaching, right? You worked in reverse. You started on the coaching side, working on the sidelines, like you talked about, substituting guys, drawing plays, having a practice plan, coaches meetings, you're presenting, you're doing scouts. Some coaches now, the trend is because maybe they didn't have an entry after they finished their playing career, they went straight into skill development. There's no coaches union or like, there's no FIBA regulations or anything like that where you have to pass some type of bar to become a skills coach. How can they prepare themselves from a skill standpoint and an understanding standpoint to be candidates to maybe work on the staff? I mentor coaches just like you. I don't have as much experience coaching professionally, but I had the chance to coach overseas, right, on a staff. They don't know, a lot of these coaches, they don't even have a clue of what coaching is really like, especially if they've only worked with, one player at a time. They don't know the professionalism. They don't understand, being responsible to another man's vision, or even that maybe what you believe in as a skills coach from just a perspective of the game might not line up with our team philosophy. Like if my coach wants us to jump off 2 feet in the paint, I can't be teaching Euro steps and finishing off one with the guys, right? It's not that it's wrong, but that doesn't fit with our coach's philosophy if I'm his assistant. So talk to just some of that flexibility and the skill set that is necessary if they really want a career coaching in the game.
You hit it on the head already. One, which we've talked about, they need to go coach. Like, it is just such a valuable experience if they could go volunteer for an AAU team, volunteer for a high school team, because and we talk about this all the time. I was a head high school coach or, JV coach, but I was never a head college coach. I was associate head coach. But you have to learn to work for somebody else. And what we talk about all the time, and we share in our mentorship group, we share in our clinics in Phoenix, is there is a dynamic to being a great assistant. Everyone wants to be a head coach, but who's preparing these guys to be assistants? So one, go be an assistant for someone. Just go help and use your voice and figure out when a coach is talking in a timeout and he makes his great point. We call this piggybacking. You don't piggyback off that coach. You're like, oh yeah, and we need to box out and make sure you just took away from. There's a dynamic to being a communicator and an assistant. The other part you actually just said, these dudes have to get a mentor. Like, I have a mentor in life. I have a coaching mentor. I have a life mentor. Heck, I go see a therapist sometimes. Like, we need people coaching us up. And like Rod Olson, my other mentor, he always says, like, you can't give away what you don't possess. So if we're not coachable and we're not teachable, how the heck are we going to get those that we're leading to be coachable and teachable? But this is what I would say is the separator too, Korey. You're talking about these guys learning how to be an assistant coach or work for someone else. I don't know why. It used to happen, a lot in our profession and a lot just growing up. And now maybe we're all too busy or we all make more money. I don't know what it is. But like, people used to just go and work camps in the summer or go and work internships. Right. You know what I mean? Or go, like, a trainer needs to go do that. Like, you don't know what you don't know. If you go work the Drake basketball camp, you're going to be around these coaches and see how they function and see how their day-to-day go. Like, until you've been in that environment, you never know what's going on. And I would challenge, a lot of coaches, like I said, to coach a team, go out, just go be an assistant somehow. Well, even if you're a JV, assistant, whatever it is. Number two, like you just alluded to, you hit it on the head, get a mentor, someone who's been at that level. And actually one thing, Korey, I haven't told you this. I need to get you out to Phoenix and do it. We're going to start doing a kind of one-on-one coaching experience in Phoenix.
Mm.
where someone could come out for 3 days. And again, I'm not doing this like some other dudes and charging this crazy price, but for 3 days, you get thrown in the fire. And we also work through this workbook of your mission, your vision, your separators, your professional. We go through all this stuff. So when you leave, you're like, man, do I really want to do this? Or how the heck do I keep doing it? But that's why you got to have a mentor, someone who has a plan and could talk to you about that stuff. And then the third one, though, which I think like maybe 5% of coaches are doing, they need to go work a camp or need to go overseas for a month. And I know that's not always realistic, but like, wouldn't you agree? Don't they have to do something to like feel it, taste it, like, man.
For sure. No, I agree 100%. I think it's the fear of just being wrong. Like, I think we all have a sense of like imposter syndrome somewhere within us, where we're like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And this is what I enjoy. This is my passion. But we don't want people to actually find out that we're not really cut like that, or that we're not actually built for it quite yet. We want to pop out and just have it all together. We don't want to go through that process where we get found out. For me, my first year coaching overseas was that experience. Like, I remember I lost my playbook and the opposing team found it, like right before a game at a shoot around. Like, I left from the court. I was doing, a skill session with the bigs, and then I had the guards, and I forgot that I left my playbook next to the stanchion because during practice, it was my job to diagram plays and put them in the fast draw. So, too many of those experiences left me feeling like, am I even good enough? Like, is this really what I want to do? Am I competent? Can I be trusted? So, I think that's the fear is, man, oh, Phil Beckner or whoever, they're inviting me to come out and now be in front of everyone and have to actually do what I've said I want to do. I don't know. I'll just stay comfortable in my local gym and work with my kids where I'm
okay. So here's where I challenge coaches. And that's why I love your approach to what you're doing on this podcast. Like I said, there's about 11 that people want me to do right now. And I wanted to do yours. Tell me this. Let's say you are that scared dude still, right? What would you tell a player who said the same stuff to you? Oh, I don't want to go try. I don't know if I should train with that guy. Oh, I don't know if I should dive on the floor for a loose ball. I don't know if I should drive 30 minutes for this AAU practice over here. Like, what would you tell that player? You'd be like, man, sack up, let's go. Like, this is how you become. But as coaches, and I've told this quote to Dame forever, and now we share it with all the other players. Like, the greatest gap in life is the one between knowing and doing. That's the greatest gap we all have to close. We know what it takes. We know where we need to go. We know who we need to talk to, but we don't do it. And so many times, like the church I go to in Phoenix, they talk about it all the time. They're like, hey, we don't need a bunch of new information right now. We just need to act upon the information or knowledge we already have. So like these coaches who are scared, like I'm going to be like, well, then you're going to create a bunch of scared players because you can't give away what you don't possess. We know what we got to do, but do you do it? How many guys could close that gap? And like Dame gets sick of hearing it. He's 32 years old now. And I'll say, hey, you know what the greatest gap in life is? And he just kind of gives me a dirty look. Like, it's the one between knowing and doing. And you got to have some toughness, some grit, some resolve, some freaking resilience to close that gap. And I hope coaches who are watching this, man, if you're afraid to, like you said, get exposed, like, man, then your players are going to be afraid. Get out there. And we know that we're going to pass up the majority of the competition by just getting out there and swinging for the fences, man, just trying. Because I guarantee you are a lot more, Korey Harris is a lot more confident coaching, mentoring, leading because he forgot his damn playbook. And he's been there and he's felt that fire.
For sure, man. This is powerful. This is like top 3 right now, Coach. We might be number 1 if we keep on this track. I'm telling you.
All right, so you got to make your last couple of questions good, then we'll try to knock it out of the park.
Yes, sir. So, how do you approach preparing, or not preparing? How do you approach developing a new player, a new client? Like, what's your process? How do you go about evaluating and then taking them from A to B?
Yeah, I think you skipped the most important step. It's not evaluating. It comes down to connecting. If you can't connect with these guys and know what they're trying to get good at, how they view themselves, where they're trying to get, you're not going to have a very good plan. I think that's the thing I've worked the hardest at, is connecting and communicating with these guys. And everyone communicates different. Everyone learns different. But we have one rule that, like, whenever we go eat with a player, and this is where some of these high school and college trainers probably would like this a lot more than I do, because whenever I take a guy to eat or go eat with a player, our rule is that we always pay. I always pay for every meal. So even though Dame's making 50 million and Ann's making 22 million, and those dudes like some nice, like, I pay. And it's based on the premise of wanting to connect and communicate with them on a deeper level. And we say the same thing for Formula Zero, the camp Dame and I started. We want nothing from you and everything for you. People always want something from these guys, and in turn, it screws up that plan you're talking about. They don't evaluate them, or they don't see things clearly enough. And then also, same thing when I work with business execs, like, I could have a vision for their business all I want, but at the end of the day, if that's not their vision and where they're trying to get to, we're not going to get there. So there has to be some collaboration in that deal, more so than anybody. Here's a great one. Now, talking about plans, I met with an NBA team. They're building a new facility, right? It's phenomenal. They're going to build a new practice facility. And Korey, they said they met with 5 companies who built facilities. 5 companies. They said 3 of these companies came in and told us everything they wanted to do and what they thought and what they saw, and here's how you do it, and blah. One other team just pretty much copied the last one they built, said, here's what we did with so-and-so, and we do it with you guys. He goes, and then there was one company, they sat down and they asked, what do you want? Where do you want to go? How do you want this thing to look? Guess who they hired out of those 5? That company. So when I sit down, where we start, to really answer your question, where we start is asking them questions. What do you want to do? What do you want to be known for? What should your labels be? When you get done playing or competing against somebody, what do you want them to say about you on and off the court? What does your agent, your mom, whoever's advising you, what do they think you need? So we look at those, and then I give my list, and we try to find that sweet spot. We try to find the middle ground. Then it comes down to detail, transparency, a great plan. We break our stuff. And here's what I'd say to trainers. Here's the last part I'll give you, as we talk about this in depth in Phoenix a lot. How I break stuff down, and I'm still old school. I type 2 things, I write 1 thing. So we come up with a major, huge kind of plan for these guys based on everything they said. We said the whole overall direction, like, this is their big, huge blueprint. And we even have, a workshop. We call it Player Development Blueprint. We have a huge blueprint from them. From there, Korey, we turn it into an outline. And that outline might be like a 3-week outline, a 2-month outline, an off-season outline, whatever. So we have this blueprint with all of our knowledge, everything we need. Then we turn it into a short 1-page outline. I look at that outline every week or every day. Then we do their weekly plan or their daily workout plan based on that outline. And you could see the alignment, which I think is so, important, alignment from the blueprint to the outline to the week or daily plan. Because, and Sam Presti said this, I know him, good friend, works for the Thunder. He said this all the time in OKC. He said, flying by the seat of your pants usually precedes crashing by the seat of your pants. And too many times a coach is like writing a workout down right before he goes. Heck, I'll bet you 80% of the trainers don't write workouts down, which is BS to me. Unless you're just the smartest, most talented dude in the world. So we start with connection. Then it goes to communication, asking them what they want. Then it goes into the breakdown of blueprint, outline, weekly or daily plans.
Amazing. Coaches, if that could help you pause, rewind, go back, replay that section, because that was full of a lot of gems. My last question to you, Coach, what's next for you? Like, what's your overall vision? Where are you striving for as a person, as a businessman, as a coach? Like, what's in your future?
Sheesh, great question. No one ever asked me that. So really, really good. The thing I want to do actually, I do like kind of the speaking and consulting. The message I want to grow that has had a tremendous impact on people is the Be Better, Be Different. We've started a nonprofit from that. So we have Be Better, Be Different is a, high performance consulting, get better, character coaching, all that. But then we also started a nonprofit in Arizona, the Be Better, Be Different Legacy Foundation. And we adopt some of these like inner city schools, and we provide a full-time character coach for them. We provide game day food and snacks. We provide gear, a ton of resources just to help give them a different path, a path of choice that they have to take. And it's not a path they have to follow, but hey, if you want to be successful, you could follow these things. And same thing with Be Better, Be Different. I just worked with 2 different companies, one in February, one in March, and the message and the principles, it's not all my stuff. It's stuff from Dame. It's stuff from all of us who've worked together, but it's really, helped change a lot of lives. And I would end on this, like, I want to continue, my goal, my vision is to continue to build on the mission that we set for this company 5 years ago. And it's really, really simple. It's to help athletes, coaches, trainers, or whatever. It's to impact them both personally and professionally, to help them become the best version of themselves, to impact them both personally and professionally, and help them become the best version of themselves. So we want to impact performance, and we want to impact people. We want to build people, and we want to build careers. And that's the vision we're going to stick with, whether it's me, my interns, the few people who work with me, the players we train, the players who now start mentoring others. That's our goal, and that's what we hope to keep doing.
Amazing, amazing stuff. And I think you're going to accomplish everything and more that you've already set out to do, Coach Phil. We just want to say thank you again for your time. It's been an honor just to learn from you. Where can we follow you, support? Are there any links that the people who are watching this can be made aware of?
Yeah, my Twitter is my name, @Phil Beckner is my Twitter. And then my email here, if they want to reach out, if they got any questions or follow-ups. So my name, Phil, PHIL, @develop2compete. So that's DEVELOP, the number 2, compete.com.
Coaches, we'll make sure that those links are in the description below. Thank you again so much, Coach Phil. That wraps up another one-on-one here on the Transition Podcast, a real resource for coaches. Signing off. Thank you guys so much. God bless.